Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Off the Schneid. Today it's Wednesday night, obviously. We're doing the show as we always do. Welcome back. If you could hit that like button on your way in, we're going to do a bunch of things this week. Similar to what we did last week. I won't make you like it to do a battle royale, but I hope that you like it anyways, and we'll get there. Definitely going to do one or two of those drafts. We'll talk about a DraftKings lineup like we did last week. I think I cashed in one, lost in another. Basically came out a wash last week. Did well with the pick'ems. So hopefully if you tailed, especially the two that I kind of guaranteed, if you tailed that, and I'll show that. You saw it on the thumbnail there. So shout out Fantasy Dog Pound. You see the money symbols and you click the thumbnail. That's the honey pot. So hopefully that brings the boys to the yard, my milkshake, you know what I'm saying? So we'll dig into this. I'll give my Underdog Pick'em picks first. We'll plow through that, look through the whole slate. I'll show you what I like, why I like it, some reasoning behind it. Got a bunch of picks actually to go through. So, pick out one or two that you like, add it into what you think, tail a few, whatever you want to do. Some I'm a little more, confident in than others, but pretty confident in all of these. And again, if you tailed last week, hopefully you made some bucks. So let's jump into it. Let's jump onto the Underdog site. Give me 2 seconds here. And there we are. So let's make that a little bit bigger so everyone can see. All right. So this is last week. Couple this week for the Monday night games. Took Chubb and Jamal Williams in the over yards. They were looking good. And then we all know what happened there. So a little bit disappointing. Took an L last night. Not a big deal. We're up from Sunday. So these were the Sunday picks that I ended up putting in. This is what you saw on the thumbnail when you came in. So I did take the under. I took Bijan Robinson over. I'll talk about the under with Tua on the 100K Sunday pick'em entry that I'm sure everybody put a little something on to qualify for that 10 G's. Obviously I didn't win it. Would have been nice, but I'm obviously try again this week. Everybody will probably try again and see if you can make some money there. But either way, Bijan Robinson over 54.5 yards, took the over, smashed it. I think he was more than 72. I'm not sure why it only shows 72 yards, but I'm pretty sure he had more than that. David Montgomery, before he got injured in this game against Seattle, took the over 56.5 yards, hit that. I think, again, he was more than the 67.5 here, but took the over and we nailed it. Rachaad White, he got the volume in week one. He just didn't quite get the yards for some reason against Minnesota. He really should have been all over that defense, but it is what it is. It happens. So I'll take the free juice on the 55.5 yards there. I took the over again. He smashed that. I think it was more than 72. Not sure why it stops there, but there you go. And then, like I said, I took the under on the Tua. It was 277.5 at one point. It dropped to 271. I still took the under. Still look good. The Patriots defense is no joke. It looked like it was going to get tight at the end there, but he held off for the under. We hit that. And then Josh Allen over 254.5 passing yards. Took the over against Las Vegas, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Thought that was a pretty easy smash. Took that. Bet. I'm not exactly sure what I bet on that, but plus $400. That's a nice little win. I'll be taking that to the bank. So there's a nice little juice for some battle royales. That was pretty easy slate, I thought, to get some picks in and win a bet. And then I made another ticket. Again, these were both on the thumbnail, so you saw them there. These were the two kind of guarantees that I had last week. Was Deebo Samuel, and I think he was at like 51.5, something like that, yards when I had it on the stream on the show. It went down for whatever reason. I'll take that juice. 46.5 yards. I'll smash the over. It was well over, 45, 67 is what it shows here. Again, I'm not sure if this is accurate or not, but either way, over, nailed it. Tyreek Hill took the free square there. And then Matt Stafford, 222.5 yards. That was, again, an easy smash for me. The San Francisco defense, if they have a weakness, it's in the secondary. And, they're going to allow some passing yards. I think he was over 300 yards. So that was just an easy click for me. These are my two guarantees, Matt Stafford and Deebo Samuel. Take that with your free square and Tyreek. Boom. I can't remember exactly what I bet again, but $120 plus money there. Take that to the bank. So that's what we did last week. But as most people know, you're only as good as your last week in fantasy football. So let's dig into this week's slate of pick'ems. I'll tell you what I like, what I don't like, why I like it. Let's plow through the whole thing here. We're going to dig right into this. The 100K bet this week, you don't have to win it. You just have to bet on it, is the rules on this one to qualify. So we got 91.5 total yards for Tyreek Hill. The weird thing with this one is his rushing and receiving yards is lower than his total yards, throw us a bone to qualify. That's pretty weird. I don't really know how you justify that. Like, how do you have this bet be lower than the total yards? I don't know how that works. That doesn't really make sense at all. But that's what it is. 91.5 total yards. I'll probably take the over on this as it sits right now. And if I'm on the fence on some of these and you're interested, just fire me a quick message, jump in the DMs on Twitter, at me on Twitter, whatever you want to do. Let me know and I'll give you an updated answer, and the line might move, so that can change things as well. But as it sits right now, 91.5 total yards, I'm probably taking the over. I think that this game is going to be a bit of a shootout. I think it's going to be an underrated kind of game to stack in pick'ems, battle royales, DraftKings, things like that. Everybody's going to be hyper focused on the Minnesota Vikings versus the LA Chargers, and rightfully so. That's definitely a game that we need to focus on, and we need to try to get a piece of in anything that we're doing DraftKings and battle royale wise and pick'em wise, as well, as you'll see in a second here. But as a secondary game, I think that this Miami Denver, little less chalky, high point total, less than the Vikings Chargers, obviously, but that game should be and probably will be quite the shootout. So right now, as it sits, I'm probably taking the over. We'll leave it there and we'll move on to what we have next. Actually, while this is right here, the Thursday night game, I do have a slip in for the Thursday night game. So let's take a look at that. Let's go here. I got a nice little entry for season long. If you want to take a look at that one, it's looking okay so far. Daniel Jones, 18 passing touchdowns. DK Metcalf, 900 yards. Keenan Allen, 6 touchdowns. Chris Godwin, 800 receiving yards. And then George Pickens with 5 touchdowns. Looking pretty good so far. We'll see. It's a long season. But this is what I put in for tomorrow night's game. Obviously, it's all Thursday night. There's the spicy picks, the new feature they added on DraftKings, on Underdog, where it's a booster, 1.25, 1.5, 1.75, 2 times your bet, all that kind of stuff. Pretty cool feature. I like it. I'm going to be taking advantage of it where I see some value. And I saw some value here in the Darren Waller touchdown, spicy, juicy pick, multiplier, whatever you want to call it. So I took that. I think there's a good shot he gets a touchdown here. Again, if the 49ers have a weakness, it's definitely in the secondary. Jimmy Ward's not there anymore. Hafanga's not much of a, realistically, he's not a big cover guy, more of a big hitter, smaller linebacker is essentially how I see Hafanga. So the weakness is in the secondary. Hopefully Daniel Jones will have enough time to get the ball to Darren Waller. And I think that this game could get out of hand. So I'm taking Daniel Jones with the over passing yards as well. He beat that last week. Again, if this team has a weakness, the 49ers on defense, if they have a weakness, it's in that secondary. So I'm going to take a shot on the over yards as well for Daniel Jones. And then I'm smashing Deebo again. I don't know why he's not getting any respect here. It's a little wild that he's just kind of there. just saying that he's going to suck all year, essentially every single game. I'm going to smash him if his over under sits around this, 53.5 receiving yards. Brandon Ayuk might not play. We'll see. It sounds like he's got a sprained AC joint is what I've kind of read it as. So he can play through it, but he'll be in pain. Not sure it's entirely necessary to play him. So yeah, I'm going to smash the 53.5 yards for Deebo Samuel again. Not a problem there. 2 field goals for Jake Moody. Again, if this game does get out of hand, number one, Jake Moody is a very, very good kicker. He's the number one fantasy kicker, out there right now. So I right there, he's beaten this both games so far. So I'm going to take the over. 2 field goals for Jake Moody. Again, if it gets out of hand, towards the end of the half, that sort of thing, maybe the Giants can just make a big stop here and there. But I think 2 field goals is definitely attainable for Jake Moody. So there you go. And then Graham Gano, over 5.5 kicking points. That's, a field goal, 3 touchdowns, 2 field goals is all he needs. Something like that. I just feel like they can move the ball. They can get hopefully in the end zone or at least close to the red zone, kick a couple field goals. It's in San Francisco, might be a touch windy. We'll see. San Francisco can be a windy city, but I'm not too concerned about that this early in the year. I like Graham Gano to get, again, another 2 field goals. That wasn't an option. So I'll take the free juice with extra points. But realistically, I'm relying on 2 field goals because I don't know if the Giants can score 3 touchdowns against the 49er defense. So I'm banking on 2 field goals for Graham Gano, and I think that that's attainable as well. So I took the boost, $25 entry, pays $500 if they all hit. I think that's a little bit of a lofty, ask by me to hit this, if I'm being honest with you. What might let me down is this Graham Gano 5.5 kicking points. That I think is the most likely. I kind of regret that one now that I'm looking at it, but I still like the chances there for him to get a couple field goals. And, they're going to score some points. So if they can get to the red zone, get stopped, 2 field goals, I'm laughing, hopefully in the first half. And then we'll kind of take it from there. So that's what I'm doing for tomorrow night's game for the Thursday nighter. And then let's jump over to the rest of the slate here. All right. There we go. So, like I said, probably taking the over with Tyreek Hill. Showed you what I'm doing here for the Thursday night game, Giants 49ers. So we'll scroll past all of this. Now, what do we got here? So, big game of the week is the Chargers Vikings. Big trade by the Vikings, if you can call it that. It's a big trade for a lot of fantasy purposes, with Cam Akers coming over to the Vikings for basically a bucket of balls. It's a conditional 7th for a conditional 6th in 2026 is what's going on with the trade for Akers. So basically it's a bag of balls, and we'll see what happens with Cam Akers. Obviously, we'll see if he even plays in this game. I'm not too concerned about the running backs for the Vikings regardless. So let's look at it. What do I see some value in here? That's a pretty lofty goal, 282 passing yards to Herbert. Yeah, I think he can absolutely get it. And I'm going to have enough exposure to him in battle royales and potentially DraftKings to not have to take this as a pick'em. I'm not going that far. I think he could definitely surpass this. Absolutely. But I'm not taking that. Same thing with Mike Williams. Same thing with Keenan Allen. I think if he spreads the ball around, it might be tough for them to hit those yards. And I would hate to, hit one and miss on one and the other guy does it. You know what I mean? So I'm just avoiding these guys. Again, I'll have enough exposure in the battle royale and DraftKings in this game. So I'm not too concerned. I'm not going to touch those guys. What I do like is Cameron Dicker in the over, not the field goal, sorry, over 2.5 extra points made. I think it's very, very likely that this is a shootout. I'm not the only one that thinks it. It's pretty much on the table. It's going to be a high priority for every DraftKings battle royale. This is going to be a game to stack. So I think the Chargers can score 3 touchdowns against the Minnesota Vikings, unless Cameron Dicker misses one, which I highly doubt, and they could score 4 touchdowns. So I'm taking the over extra points made 2.5 for Cameron Dicker. I'm not like going to make a guarantee on this one or anything, but I really, really like the chances. And chances are pretty high I'll be taking this at least in one slip. So 2.5 extra points made for Cameron Dicker. I like that. I'll probably be taking that one. Next up is the other side of this highly, high scoring game. There's going to be a lot of passing yards, a lot of touchdowns, potentially some rushing yards, but I'm not touching that. Again, this is a little too high for me, 291.5. That's just a little too high for me to, stamp my name on it. So I'm not taking that. Rushing yards, I never look at for Kirk Cousins. But then we got Justin Jefferson here. Hasn't had a touchdown yet. And this is pretty juicy. 1 touchdown rushing, receiving. You get that extra with the rushing just in case for some reason he has an end around or a sweep or something like that and he gets into the end zone. But I definitely expect him to catch a touchdown pass in this game, at least one. So I'm taking the over. I'm going to take one touchdown on this one. I'm not going to go as far as like guaranteeing it or anything, but this is very, very likely and definitely one I like a ton. So chances are pretty high I'll have this on my slip for this weekend. And I'll post my slips on Twitter. So go ahead and follow me on Twitter. You can see my handle right there if you don't already. And I'll post my slips to what I actually put and what the closing lines are and things like that. But chances are this will be on a slip for me. Also in this game, Jordan Addison over 49.5 yards. I like this a lot. He's got a nice ADOT. Again, this is going to be a high scoring, move the ball kind of a game. He's beaten this, I think, in both games so far off the top of my head. He's beaten this number. I like him to score a touchdown, but I certainly wouldn't bet on it and I'll pick him here. I'll have tons of exposure to Jordan Addison in battle royales, but I like this over 49.5 yards. Against what might be the worst passing defense in the NFL right now. And again, this is going to be up and down the field. I was listening to Moving the Chains in my truck while I work, and Pat Kerwin was saying he wouldn't be shocked to see over 90 total passing attempts in this game. He wouldn't be surprised by that. And I wouldn't either, to be honest with you. That'd be nuts. I wouldn't be crazy surprised, though. I think that that's entirely on the table. Over the 49.5 yards for Jordan Addison. We'll see if this goes up throughout the week. But again, check back my slips if you want to see it there. Same thing I said about Cameron Dicker with the LA Chargers as far as scoring points, getting touchdowns. I could certainly see the Minnesota Vikings getting 3 touchdowns in this game. So I like the over 2.5 extra points made for Greg Joseph, the Minnesota Vikings kicker. So this is a game that I'm looking at a lot of different things, and I'll have tons of exposure again on battle royales. DraftKings we'll get into in a second and all that. So over 2.5 extra points, 3 touchdowns for the Vikings. I dig it. I'll be looking at that. Next up is, to me, the next game that I'm looking at as far as, stacking for battle royales, DraftKings and things like that. It's got a high point total, should be a little less chalky than the Chargers Vikings. But I still think there'll be plenty of chalk in this game. I'm okay to eat it. But right now we're talking about, pick 'em numbers. So there's definitely some numbers and some plays I like here. Starting with Russell Wilson, over 231.5 passing yards. Definitely something I like. The secondary and the defense in general for the Miami Dolphins is pretty suspect. Russell beat this last week. Sure, he had a huge Hail Mary at the end of the game, but this game might get even more out of hand with the passing defense and the running defense, the rush defense for the defense as a whole for the Broncos is a bit of a sieve. So if they're giving up points, the Broncos are going to have to come back. And Judy's back pretty much full strength, should be full strength. They got Sutton there. Mims is good for a deep ball here and there. So 231.5 passing yards. I'll take the over. If he gets 250, we're laughing. And I think that's entirely attainable. So I'm liking this number for Russell Wilson. This is pretty high up there for me as far as a guarantee. I really, really like this number. I think that that's pretty cheap. It might go up throughout the week here. So we'll check back on it and take a look at the Twitter machine and see what I end up doing and if I have this on my slip. But again, chances are pretty high that I have this on a slip for this weekend. I might just stack these 2 games in 2 different slips and see if it pays out for me. But there you go. Like that one. Javonte splitting too much with P. Ryan, not a huge fan. Jerry Jeudy, I was close, but I'm not entirely in love with this number. 49.5 yards. It's close for me, but I'd much rather take less for potentially more. Cortland Sutton's playing a lot of snaps for this team. He's running a lot of routes. He's getting targeted at a decent clip. He's beat this number twice for so far in the year in both games this year. Again, it's a bit of a shootout game. The secondary is pretty suspect. So give me the over 46.5 receiving yards for Cortland Sutton. Chances are pretty high if I end up taking Russell Wilson over passing yards, I'm going to put the Cortland Sutton over receiving yards on that same slip. Just makes too much sense to do it. So that's one that I really, really like. I think that that's a cheap number. I'm going to hit that pretty hard. It's pretty hard to justify Jerry Jeudy having a higher line than Cortland Sutton, in my opinion, but it is what it is. So I'll take it. I'll take the juice there. Will Lutz, what else do we got here? Moving on to the other side. This 264, don't despise it, but I probably won't be taking that. It's just, again, a little too juicy for me. I'll probably avoid that. I think you can just find better value, right? I think there's better value throughout the slate for this week. So I'm not taking the Tua over, definitely not the rushing yards. You could look at Raheem Mostert, not something I'm going to talk about too much, but this is a decent number for Mostert. I'm not going to hit it as it sits right now. If that goes into the 50s, I might look at it harder, but right as it sits right now, I'm not going to recommend that just yet. Again, this one's weird. 85.5 versus 91.5. That doesn't make tons of sense. It's the same thing. Unless you're including passing yards or something and you think he's going to throw a ball. I don't know. Doesn't make a lot of sense. These two should be the same number, in my opinion, but I'll probably take the over as it sits right now. Not going to hang my hat on that just yet, so check back on the Twitter because I will have this. I'm going to qualify myself for the 10 Gs. I want a shot at that, so I'll bet that either over or under, but check back on Twitter. What I do like on the other side here, again, I think that this could be, the second highest scoring game. The odds makers think the same thing. The line is the second or third highest on the week behind the Chargers Vikings. So I think they can score 3 touchdowns. I've got the over 2.5 extra points for Jason Sanders. I think that's entirely on the table. 3 touchdowns is what they need. I think that's entirely doable against this defense. It's at home. That's a pretty easy click for me. So I like a lot of touchdowns this weekend, and especially in these first 2 games. Big fan of those 2 picks. 3 touchdowns for each team, Vikings, Chargers, and the Dolphins. I'll take it. Moving on. Desmond Ridder, nothing I particularly like here. I'm just going to avoid that until we see a little more. I need a little more data. I need a little more proof in the pudding for Desmond Ridder right this second. But I do like Bijan Robinson. Bet on him last week. Hit it. Cash that one. I'm going to go back to the well. I'm going to go with Bijan Robinson. Not rushing yards this week. I'm going to take the over 23.5 receiving yards for Bijan Robinson. He's beat this, I think, in both games so far. Last week, the running backs on the Seahawks don't entirely catch the ball a crazy amount. Pacheco beat this number in week 1. So I'm going to take the over. Bijan Robinson's a freak. He may be the best running back in the NFL right now. Literally. I mean, he's right there with Christian McCaffrey. CMC is still number 1 in my opinion, but Bijan Robinson is literally right there. He's a very close number 2 in my opinion. In my rankings, I would have it Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson. So yeah, get him the ball in space and he could beat this on 1 catch. So I'm taking the over. Bijan Robinson. It's indoors. Guys say they're faster in turf, which is what they have in Detroit. So give me the over 23.5 yards for Bijan Robinson. This one is probably the number 1 bet so far for me. The Bijan Robinson over 23.5 yards. Give me that. I like that. They have Algier to run, straight into his offensive line and the defensive line and scrape out 4 yards. Get Bijan the ball in space, catching the ball. I think this might be my guarantee so far. Bijan Robinson, I will almost certainly Not even. I will have this on a betting slip this weekend. 23.5 just is way too juicy. I'll be hitting that hard, maybe on multiple slips, to be honest with you. I like this bet quite a bit. So there you go. There's that game. I don't really like anything else in this game, if I'm being honest with you. This is just a little too high for me. Again, a little too high. Not touching that. I thought about this Kyle Pitts number here, but I'll get my exposure to Pitts and maybe a battle royale or two. And then DraftKings is where I like him. I think he's going to have a spike week at some point, but I'm not going to bet on it in a pick'em format. I'll take that bet on a DraftKings lineup, which we'll see in a second here. But I thought about this number. That's right, around where I would look at taking it, to be honest with you. I know everybody hates Kyle Pitts right now. I get it. I understand it. But I think he's going to have a big game coming up soon. We'll get into why I think that again when we talk about DraftKings, because he may or may not be a little teaser there in my DraftKings lineup that I'm going to, present for you guys in a minute here. Mac Hollins, nothing to see here. What do I like on the other side? Nothing. I'm not touching this. Too high passing yards for me. Atlanta's got a good defense. Passing touchdowns, he needs 3 to beat this. I'm not touching it. Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't mind that, but that's a relatively big bet. I'm not going to just, say that Gibbs gets a touchdown this week. So I'm leaving the kicker. But we'll move into the Buffalo Washington game here. Washington has a good defense, and it's, Josh Allen's highest for the year so far, 274 yards last week, that I bet on. It was much better matchup against the Raiders. So against this defense, I'm going to, on the road as well, I'm going to temper my expectations. I'm leaving this off my bet card this week. I don't mind this number. Traditionally, if we're looking at last year, I would take this with Josh Allen, but we'll see. Maybe a little more data as the year goes on. We'll see how it kind of progresses. But right now, I'm leaving this off my bet card. Same thing with James Cook. Again, this defense for Washington is very good, especially on the defensive line. Not taking some over rushing yards there. Close, but I'm going to avoid the Stephon Diggs. Again, close, but I'm going to avoid Gabe Davis. It could be either or type of thing. It's just a little too high for me to touch. But what I do like here, Tyler Bass, a lot of kicker stuff, but hey, follow the money, take what's going to make you money. And, they're all worth the same. It's like, a 100-foot putt versus a 2-foot putt in golf. They're all worth the same on the scorecard, right? So it's the same thing here. I'm going to take Tyler Bass over 2 field goals. Again, this defense is good. The Bills absolutely will be able to move the ball on the Commanders, but they might come up short a couple times, in the red zone or just outside the red zone, 30-yard line, things like that. Couple field goals for Tyler Bass, and we're cashing money. So I actually really, really, really like this bet. This is, again, right there with the Bijan Robinson. This is another really close guarantee for me. I really, really like this bet. I think that it's entirely possible they move the ball, get deep, get stopped, 2 field goals, or the game might get out of hand, right? That's entirely possible with the Buffalo Bills. Game gets out of hand. Realistically, every game script looks good for Tyler Bass. If it's a close game, that looks good. I'm smashing this. This is right there with Bijan. I really like this number, over 1.5 field goals for Tyler Bass. So there you go. Moving on, the other side of this game, Sam Howell had a good week last week. I don't mind this passing number. I really don't, but I just still think there's some risk there. It is at home, but I don't despise the Bills defense enough. If this was in the lower 2s, definitely in the 100s, over 200 passing yards for sure. Again, it's just a little too fringe for me. So I'm going to avoid this one this week. I'm not going to touch it, leave it off the card, but I do like 55.5 rush yards. I like the over for Brian Robinson. Again, these are all overs. I don't look for unders realistically. Last week, the only under I took was Tua, because I just thought that line was egregious and a little disrespectful against the Patriots defense. I look for overs. I don't look for unders. It's not entirely fun to bet the under unless you got a good read on the game script or the situation, whatever it is. But with Brian Robinson, he's beat this. both weeks so far. As far as I know off the top of my head, he might have been close on week 1, but 55.5 yards. Look at week 1 to get with the Jets. Brees Hall busted 2 big runs against this defense. They are strong up the middle, but I think Brian Robinson can get his again at home. I think he can beat this rushing number, 55.5. So I'm gonna be taking the over there. And that's all I got for this game. For a game that could be relatively high scoring, look at Washington last week with Denver, 68 points in that game, a little crazy. Buffalo's right there. They could do the same thing. This could be another 60-point game, but I'm not banking on it. I'm not betting on it. I'm going to take what I see as kind of safe. And those are the 2 bets in this game that I'm looking at. Other than that, I'm kind of out. I'm leaving these where they're sitting at. There's just too much competition for targets for, pass catchers with Washington. And if the line is only 220 passing yards and there's, 5 guys that I think can get some looks and get some catches for this team, then it's kind of hard to bet either this passing yards for Sam Howell or the over receiving yards from McLaurin, Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, Cole Turner, Antonio Gibson, even Brian Robinson in the passing game, right? There's just a lot of mouths to feed, and the numbers just don't really add up to me on this line. And that's kind of why I'm avoiding this one. It's entirely possible that they all smash and it's a huge blowout game, but I'm just not betting on it. I'm just not super comfortable taking those numbers. So avoiding that. All we got for Indy is Matt Gay. I'm not touching kicker, in that game. But on the other side of it, one number that I do like, and this might be sneaky to some, I like Lamar Jackson over 225.5 passing yards. So why do I like that? It's Lamar Jackson. He's a rushing quarterback, running quarterback. He's not, the best thrower in the game, blah, blah, blah. If you look at the Indianapolis Colts defense, where does their strength lie, right? On the defensive line, they got DeForest Buckner, they got Kwity Paye, they got some other guys there. They got Shaq Leonard, and as a linebacker, they can stop the run. They can do well enough to stop the run. Where are they weak? They are terrible in the secondary. They're a really bad team in the secondary. It's in Baltimore. 225. He beat that last week. I think that's a really juicy looking number. I'll pretty much definitely be taking this somewhere. I'm not going to put it up there with the Tyler Bass and Bijan Robinson, but I really, really like this number. I'll be hitting that. I think that's pretty easy for him to smash that, even without Odell. I don't really care if Odell Beckham doesn't play. Mark Andrews is back. That's a good number there. Zay Flowers, I thought very, very, very long and hard about taking the over on Zay Flowers, 48.5 right here, but I don't know. I just couldn't justify it. He could, Nelson Aguilar, if Nelson Aguilar shows up on here for 30 yards or something like that, high 20s, I'll probably jump all over that. If Odell Beckham Jr. is not playing and Nelson Aguilar shows up on the card a little later in the week, chances are relatively high I'll be hitting that, depending on what the number is. So again, check on Twitter, see what my bet card actually looks like. But either way, I'll just take the passing yards for Lamar and kind of call it a day. So that's where I'm taking there. Justin Tucker leaving it. What else do I got here? Nothing in this game, the New Orleans Green Bay. It's just, I think it's going to be a bit of an ugly game, and I'm just going to avoid it altogether. There's some numbers that might work. If they work for you, great. But I'm staying away from this game personally. It's just not something I'm going to put my stamp of approval on. Same thing in the Jacksonville-Houston game, divisional game. Yeah, CJ Stroud can smash this if they're falling behind, blah, blah, blah. I'm just not comfortable taking anything in these two games. The numbers don't make sense to me. I don't like them. I'm avoiding it. Not touching these two. There you go. So Tennessee, Cleveland we got next. Not loving much in this game, realistically. Not touching Tennessee against the Browns defense. I really like the Browns defense this week. I think that they can definitely, get some DFS points in DraftKings. It's at home. Tennessee on the road. I'm not loving it. I'm not touching anything on the Tennessee side, but On the Cleveland side, thought long and hard about this Deshaun Watson number, but that's way too high for me. Realistically, for me to bet over for Deshaun Watson right now would have to be, in the very low twos, high 100s. This is just way too juicy. He got 235 on Monday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Didn't even beat that number. Yeah, the Tennessee Titan, secondary sucks, but I'm not ready to trust Deshaun Watson just yet. I'm going to need way more proof for that. But what I do like, Dustin Hopkins, over 1.5 field goals. He's beaten this twice in both games. I think that the Tennessee Titans defense is just good enough. Plus, the offense for the Browns might not be good enough. So if they should be able to move the ball, though, similar to what they did against the Steelers, get up and down the field, get stopped, 2 field goals for Dustin Hopkins. I like that number. I'll take it. I'll take the over there somewhere, most likely. Again, it's not right. It's not up there with Tyler Bass and Bijan, but it's a number that I like and a number that I'll hit if it stays the same, which I'm sure it will. So there you go. Last but not least, I got one more bet. Again, this one is not one I'm touching either. The Patriots, Jets, not one that I'm touching. Just the numbers don't make sense. Divisional game, Zach Wilson's in, blah, blah, blah. It is a mess. Both these teams are kind of a mess. We'll see what happens. I'm not putting my money on either of those. Carolina, Seattle, actually, that's another one I'm not touching. We've gone through quite a bit of games, a lot of bets, a lot of numbers, so I'm not touching that. I do like Kenneth Walker as a Battle Royale DFS play, that's for sure. So this number looks pretty juicy, but, he's only beaten it 1 to 2 games so far. Chances are, he does beat it, and I do like it, but I'll have enough exposure to him in Battle Royales and DFS, so I'm not touching this for Kenny Walker just yet. I'll leave it there. But we'll get to my last pick. Jeez, I'm avoiding this game too. Chicago, KC. Chicago's just an absolute dumpster fire right now, so I'm avoiding that. I'm not going after the that situation as it sits. To be honest with you, I'm just not touching it. But let's get. Sorry, I'm just signing into my DraftKings over here, getting that all set up for us. But we'll get over here. Last but not least, I mean, you could take the only thing that I found juicy on the KC side here was, a touchdown for Travis Kelce. He could line up under center and run the ball with the hyperextended knee from a couple weeks ago. He probably doesn't do that, but chances of him catching a touchdown pretty high. You could take that if you want. I'm not gonna put that, I'm not gonna put that on here right now, but that's what I would look at realistically in this game. Dallas, Arizona. This game could just get completely out of hand. The Cowboys could just beat the absolute piss out of the Cardinals. Yeah, it's in Arizona, but I don't care. They could just beat the shit out of them all game. And then who gets points, right? Is Dak going to throw for these yards? I don't know. Is he going to throw 2 touchdowns? Maybe. The defense could absolutely blow they could probably not even play offense in this game, and the Cowboys would beat the Cardinals. So I just can't get behind anything on the Dallas side, just because I think they beat the shit out of them, and it's going to be, a massacre. So I'm not touching it. The rushing yards for Tony Pollard, not touching it. Could he smash it? Yeah, I'll get exposure in other places. Same thing with CeeDee Lamb. I'm just avoiding this game. I just think it's too likely that the Cowboys just beat the absolute shit out of the Cardinals, and it's kind of a junk game. So the last bet I got, last but not least, this is a bit of a shocker, I think, for a lot of people. Everybody, it's a bet on a guy that everybody just absolutely loves to hate, and it's Najee Harris. I'm taking, it went up 1 yard since about an hour ago. So people are obviously jumping on this already. I'm taking the over 51.5, even though it went up a full yard. It was 50.5 about an hour ago. So I'll take the 51.5 yards. I better get a slip in quickly. So I might put a slip in with, Najee, Tyler Bass, and Bijan Robinson receiving yards. I might throw that in literally right after the show's done. Because if this number keeps going up, I'm going to like it less and less. As it sits right now, I'm taking that. The Raiders rush defense is terrible. It is absolutely horrible. And Najee's still going to get, his opportunities. 10 carries, 6 carries, not great, but they were getting their asses kicked against the 49ers. And that's relatively close, right? And then 10 against the Browns. Again, the Browns defense is smothering against the run. So 4.3 yards per carry is actually pretty reasonable. If he averages even 4.3 yards per carry against the Raiders, he's going to beat that rushing total. So I'm taking that bet. I'm going over on Najee Harris, 51.5 as it sits right now. If it gets any higher to, 58, 59, I'm going to like it less and less. But as it sits right now, I'm smashing that. So there you go. There's some bets. That's what I like so far. But again, things can change. Last week I talked about Dameon Pierce, didn't even bet him. But he was one I liked at the time. As it progressed, didn't like it, didn't bet it. So check back on Twitter for the final bet slips. Send me a message if you need, at me on Twitter, whatever you got to do. And we'll get you squared away on that. But let's jump into DraftKings. It's not showing up here. Give me 2 seconds, peeps. Hit that like button if you don't mind. Help me out. Let's take a look at some DraftKings action. What do I like here? Let's just pull up the main slate. And then we'll talk through a lineup that I'll likely be submitting. All right, here we go. So, first things first, what I do when I'm picking a DFS lineup, cash game lineup, I like to pick a game that I'm going to stack. So obviously, a game that people are going to be staring down, Chargers versus Vikings. Everybody's going to be all over that. It's going to be super chalk. Sometimes you have to eat the chalk. We'll get into that a little bit with BRs a little more with the battle royales when we do that in a few minutes here. Sometimes you have to eat the chalk, and it is what it is. Some chalk's good chalk. But if you can avoid it and get the same sort of production, I think we have the possibility, we have the potential this week to be able to do that. So the game that I'm looking at, I talked about it earlier, is the Miami-Denver game. It's in Miami. It might rain. We'll see. It's about 30% chance of rain in Miami. I'm not super concerned about that, to be honest, unless it gets up to like 80, 90%, and we're definitely going to get some rain there. Keep an eye on the weather. Don't hold me to this if it rains and pours and they score, 25 points combined. So right now, as it sits, I'm liking it. So am I taking the Tua side, or am I going to take the Russell Wilson side? Look at the pricing, $7,000 for Tua. Not something I particularly love. $5,900 for Russ. I like it. I'll take it. So Russell Wilson. And then obviously you got to bring it back. So I'm going to bring it back, make it easy. Tyreek Hill. Waddle might not play. We'll see. He's in the concussion protocol right now. So I'll bring it back with Tyreek. And then this is a game. I think that this is a perfect game for you to double stack. So Judy's back. He's healthy. This will be a second game back. Hopefully he plays more snaps than he did. I think he was at like 60% roughly in his first week back. So hopefully he's up to that 80%, right there with Cortland Sutton. You could take Marvin Mims here, but he's only had 4 targets on the season, 4 catches on the season. Last week was pretty solid, definitely startable, but not something that you could rely on. So give me Cortland Sutton. I'll take the 2 wide receivers I like from the Denver side, the wide receiver I like from the Miami side, and that's going to be my game stack. So that's what I like there. Then what I typically like to do, take a look at the defenses that I like. So I'll kick over, try to save some money, keep my average remaining player, keep that as high as I can as I move forward, building out my roster. So the defense I like this week, I talked about it a second ago. The Browns, $3,300. I think that's a quality price for a team that, should be able to look at double-digit points. They had 9 and 7, right around there's okay. If they can get it to double digits, I'd be happier, but I'll take that $3,300. I'm not taking any Tennessee Titans. That's for damn sure. So I'll go ahead and fire in the Browns. Then what I typically do in order of operations, look at tight end. I try to spend money, then save money, average it out, keep my average high, and then I know what I'm looking at for running backs. So where am I going here? Again, I talked about it a few minutes ago when going through the pick'em bets there. I like Kyle Pitts to have a breakout game at some point soon. He's been targeted 8 times so far on the season. He's had 4 catches, only 59 yards, no touchdowns. But the biggest reason why I like Kyle Pitts to have a breakout game at some point, and I'm hoping it's this week, in a good matchup, obviously 30th against tight ends for the Detroit Lions. CJ Gardner-Johnson is out, right? So, but the biggest reason why I think he's got a breakout game coming is he has the highest ADOT of any tight end with 8 targets or more. So 4 targets a game. He has the highest ADOT of 11.75 yards, right? He does need to get targeted in the end zone a little bit more. So he has to fall in the end zone, but I'll take my chances at 3,900. I'll take Kyle Pitts. I'll bet on the athlete. I'll bet on the numbers that I'm looking at, and hope that he can fall in the end zone. So there you go. That's what I'm taking at tight end, Kyle Pitts. Then let's move it over to the running back position. So this is where I kind of like to save a little bit of money. And another guy that I talked about earlier, realistically, if we look at the top of the slate, Eckler might not play. Pollard, that game might be a complete blowout, so he might not actually get his if it is an absolute destruction, which it could be. Chubb, obviously, we all know, injured, he's out. Bijan Robinson, I like that, but I'm not just super convinced on the price. Plus, he might not hit a bonus. He might not hit a 100-yard bonus rushing, might not hit a 100-yard bonus receiving. So I'm away from that. Derrick Henry is in a tough matchup, right? There's not a crazy amount of potential for big scores at the top of the slate here. So for me, there's really no reason to spend money at running back this week. And it's a similar thing on battle royales, but we'll get into that in a second too. So first place I'm looking right here, Kenny Walker, 30th ranked against the running backs. Carolina is not a good team all around. So I'm hitting that $6,200. I love it. I'm going to take Kenny Walker. There you go. Another running back. Again, I like to save money, so I'm going to scroll down from there. Another running back. I was close on Madison. That was obviously before the Cam Akers trade, but I'm going to stay away from Madison. I like Brian Robinson. Buffalo gave up some yards against Breece Hall. He had 2 touchdowns last week, had a big game, right? So if he can do a similar, he doesn't even have to get up to 30 points like he was close to last week. If he gets us over 20, we're more than laughing. So that's what I'm taking there as my second RB. And then we don't have a ton of money left, right? Not a ton of money left over, but there's a play on here that I like that I'm going to look to. And I'll talk about a couple others that I'm not necessarily putting on my lineup, but reasons why I like a couple others and may or may not take them. But how are we going to save some money? You got to go wide receiver in this situation. You just do. So we scroll down to where we got the money. Treylon Burks, don't love the matchup. Juju, never trusting. Jackson Smith and Jigba, he's got 2 guys ahead of him. I'm not touching there. Josh Reynolds, a little banged up, tough matchup again. I'm looking at Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That's who I'm taking. 5 catches on 8 targets, 61 yards, 0 touchdowns, but he's got an ADOT of 14.6. So he's getting targeted 14.6 yards down the field on his 8 targets. That's his average. He's potentially 1 play away from getting in the end zone and being a startable asset here this week. It's a good matchup against Chicago at home. That's where I'm going. So there's my lineup. This is what I'm liking this week. I changed it last week. I think I had Damian Pierce in my lineup last week. So just take a couple of these guys if you like them. If you like this lineup, go ahead and tail it. Do what you got to do. I'll probably enter something a lot like this. Maybe not this exactly, but maybe this exactly as it sits right now. So there you go. That's what I'm liking for this week's slate. The main slate, obviously, on the Sunday. I like this lineup, and we'll see where it lands. Couple other things I got for you. So one play that might work out, again, I talked about it. Marvin Mims might be worth looking at. Great matchup, 2 targets, 2 catches, 113 yards and a touchdown last week. He could do something similar this weekend against Miami. So that's not a bad place to look. Super cheap, 3,900. I don't mind that look whatsoever. Another guy, let's talk about Marvin Mims. 1 touchdown, talked about his number. One of the highest ADOTs in the league, 23.5 yards. 23.5 yards downfield is what his average depth of target on his 4 targets. That's crazy. Not entirely sustainable, but maybe it is. This is exactly why I liked Marvin Mims in best ball. Was last week is the epitome of why I liked Marvin Mims this year in best ball. So there you go. That's why I was drafting so much of him. And worthwhile in DK as well. Definitely with that ADOT, he's 1 catch away from, being an asset in your lineup. Another guy, a lot of people I'm sure like 5,500. We got Jordan Addison, one of the best matchups in the game, 32nd ranked team against receivers. Touchdown in his first 2 games as a rookie, 61 plus yards, 72 last week. This is another guy that I think could get in the end zone. I'm getting tons of exposure in battle royales. And if you're able to stack up this game in DK, then, be my guest. It's just a little difficult, which is why I didn't do it. But average depth of target, 15.55 yards downfield, 2 touchdowns already. I think there's a good chance he gets in the end zone. So certainly a guy you can look at, but that's not breaking the mold on that one. Another guy that I might like, Bryce Young didn't practice today due to an ankle injury. And this, oddly enough, if the backup starts, oddly enough, that's when I go with this. So Jonathan Mingo, $3,400, 8 targets, 5 targets, 2 catches, 3 catches, 43 yards, 5 catches on 13 targets is what we're looking at. But he's got an average depth of target, 14.77 yards downfield. I like that. His targets are going up. I like that. His yards are going up. Technically, I like that. So, but I'm not starting him. I'm not playing him if Bryce Hall is on the field. I'm just not. So, or Bryce Young. Sorry, if Bryce Young's on the field, I'm not playing Jonathan Mingo. If the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton, starts for the Carolina Panthers this weekend, I think Jonathan Mingo is worth a look in DK pretty much exclusively. 3,400 yards. I think he's worth a shot. Again, with this many targets, he's getting on the field. I just need to see something out of Bryce Young. And so if Andy Dalton starts, I'll take it. I'll take a shot on him. A couple more guys. Braxton Berrios. He's on the field already quite a bit as it is. He's playing 3 wide receiver sets. He's their slot receiver as it sits right now. 5 targets, 3 targets in the first 2 games. 5 catches on 8 targets, 70 yards, no touchdowns. Again, a nice average depth of target. He's got 14.63 yards per target. I like that. He needs to get in the end zone to pay it off. If Jalen Waddle doesn't play this Sunday, this is a smash pick. 3,600 yards in a game that I think could be a bit of a blowout. That might be something that changes, my slate, what I just pulled up for you guys. That might change things if Waddle doesn't play. I think Braxton Berrios is a smash at $3,600. Only if Jalen Waddle doesn't play. And it's looking like it's entirely possible right now with a concussion. So let's keep an eye on the practice schedule and things like that for the Dolphins. Another guy that you can definitely look at that I like, Elijah Moore. I'm not taking them in, pick'ems or anything like that, but in DK, 4,700 yards. Guys had 16 targets. Amari Cooper looks great right now. Amari Cooper's had 17 targets. The problem is he's not getting catchable balls from Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson looks a little bit like hot garbage right now. So 6 catches on 16 targets, averaging 8 a game, 79 yards, average depth of target, over 10 yards, 11.5 yards average depth of target. I think it's only a matter of time before he has a breakout. This is another guy that I really like, especially in DK. I'm not going to take him in the pick'ems. I'm not going to take him in battle royales, obviously, but in a DK setting, this is a guy that I'm going to look at that I like. So there you go, Elijah Moore in DK. There it is. Done with DK. Now, we're going to jump back into Underdog. We're going to do some battle royale drafts. So if you're in the draft or in the chat, hit that like button and jump in a draft with me. Jumping back over to Underdog. One thing I want to talk about, one last thing I want to talk about, and this is a bet that I'm probably going to throw in. If and when the line comes out for this guy, it's not out right now. The entire game's not out right now on my betting site, but Jake Ferguson is a guy I want to talk about. So he leads the league in red zone targets. He has 8 targets inside the 20. He's caught 1 for a touchdown, 8 targets inside the 20 in 2 games, 4 a game. That's kind of crazy. Excellent matchup. This is where I'm going to look at that Dallas game. Actually, I've been shitting on the Dallas game a little bit all night, but this is something that I'm probably going to sprinkle a couple bucks on, just in case it happens, because the numbers back it up, and it's entirely possible that it does. So he leads the league with 8 targets inside the 20. Dak Prescott loves him. He's said publicly that he expects Jake Ferguson to have a huge season for Jake Ferguson. It hasn't really been there quite yet, but I'm going to probably throw a little sprinkle on Jake Ferguson to have 2 touchdowns. The multiple touchdown bet on Bet365 is where I bet, but wherever you bet, multiple touchdown game should be some juicy odds. I'm probably going to throw a tiny little sprinkle on that just because these numbers make sense. They back it up. And even if it is a bit of a, negative game script for, receivers, that doesn't necessarily apply to tight ends, especially in this offense. Dak loves to throw to tight ends, especially in the red zone, as we've seen here. So throw that out there. That's a little bet that I think I'm going to throw a sprinkle on, and we'll see how that works out. But let's jump into a battle royale. So what else do we got for a slate here? Hail Mary, $100, Dog Bowl. Not super interested in the Dog Bowl, if I'm being honest with you. Plus, I'm Canadian, so it'd be a bit of a pain in the ass probably to make that happen, to go to Miami. But either way, let's jump into a battle royale. There we go. See if I can zoom in for you guys a little bit. One more. Waiting for one. I haven't gotten higher than the 2. I got the 102, haven't gotten the 101. Wouldn't mind the influencer 101. No, I've been 3 almost every draft I've done so far. We got Paul. I was inverted in here. Not sure if he's in the chat or not. Wow, everyone's a red badge. I've never seen that. That's interesting. The Wilkinator, don't know who that is. Sus, definitely have drafted with him. Randstand, definitely drafted with him. Not sure who this is, but again, 4 out of the 6 have headbands. 6 of 6 have red badges. That's interesting. That's kind of funny. So it should be a pretty sharp room. We'll see how people draft, and we'll see what happens here. But it's going to be kind of annoying with it zoomed in. I can't see everything. Let's go like that. There we go. Let's make it even. There you go. All right. Justin Jefferson, more than likely going to go first. Tyreek, more than likely going to go second. So that leaves Travis Kelce, Tony Pollard, Bijan Robinson. Where do I want to go? I'll probably go Kelce on this one. And then I'm going to push. Honestly, this might work better with a red badge room. Kelsey at the 101. Paul, are you in the chat? If Paul's in the chat, then just say what's up, because that's kind of funny. He just snipes Kelsey at the 101. What I was going to say is it might work better in a red badge room to push quarterback. So, these guys might be looking for stacks a little bit more, game scripts, game stacks, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to look at. And then it might push quarterbacks down. But whatever, he's probably going to go back to back with Kelsey and then Mahomes at the turn. If Mahomes is still there, chances are quite high that he will be. Again, with these red badge rooms, there's not a lot of reason to take a naked Patrick Mahomes. So that's interesting. That's what I was going to do at the 3, is try to take Kelsey, not take him in the second round, and then try to push him into the third. And if I don't get Mahomes, I don't get Mahomes. It's not the end of the world. But that dream has died. Could take Travis Etienne against the Houston Texans. If they have a strength, it's in the secondary. If they have a weakness, it's in the running game. So I really don't mind Travis Etienne there. Realistically, I would have taken CeeDee Lamb. Might take Stephon Diggs if he's still there. Okay, I'm looking at Travis Etienne here. I'm obviously going to stack up this Miami-Denver game. That's where I'm going. So I'm going to go Travis Etienne. And then as long as Arsus doesn't take Mark Andrews, I'll be taking Mark Andrews. Obviously, Paul maybe inverted takes, bully tight end. I'm not so I don't think he would, but I have seen somebody do it on Twitter. I saw a screenshot of that, so it's possible. There goes Andrews. No need to think about it anymore. Probably gonna go with Sutton and Russell Wilson or Tua. Not too worried about that. So I need a tight end. Obviously not taking the tight end here. So I've got a ton of them. And you could go naked Josh Allen here, but I don't really love it. Mike Williams, I don't mind here, but I'm just going to take Kenny Walker. I'm going to go 2. It's pretty rare that I've been doing 2 running backs in these. I'm mostly taking 3 wide receivers this week. I just think that there's not enough points there. There's not enough points out there for running backs, and there's no high-end running backs. So, yeah, I like Etienne. I like Kenny Walker. I like Bijan. I like Pollard even, but obviously I didn't get any of those guys. So where am I going here? Now I got to look to finish out my kind of game stack and talking about my game script. I'm going to go with Sutton. And then it's either Tua or Russell Wilson here. And I'm going to go with Tua is the way I'm going to go with this one. I do have a game stack with Russell Wilson, so let's bring back the other side and go with Tua. I'll be taking him next. Yeah. I mean, what am I doing? I don't love this team. I don't love this team at all, realistically. But again, I knew it'd be a tough room. So I really thought Kelsey would be there for me at the 3, and then it can get a little bit different. But c'est la vie. I might go with Kyle Pitts here and just try to get a little bit unique. He might be my tight end. Hunter Henry's there, Evan Ingram. But I'm just going to go ahead, lock up Tua. Realistically, there's only 6 tight ends that get taken. So who doesn't have a tight end yet? Me, Randstand, and the Wilkinator. So it's 3 more tight ends that got to go. I'll take Kyle Pitts. I'll take Evan Ingram. Yeah. I'll take Dalton Kincaid if I have to. Not too concerned about that. Don't anticipate anyone would take Cortland Sutton anyways. And I've already got Travis Etienne, so I don't need to bring in Evan Ingram. I'm pretty set on Kyle Pitts. Can't take Russell Wilson, obviously. So let's go with Kyle Pitts here. Get a little bit unique with this lineup. We'll do one or two more maybe after this one. So stick around, hit that like button if you're in the chat. If you have any questions, start sit questions, anything like that, fire it in. We'll get to it. I'll help you out. Derrick Henry's still on the board. There he goes. That's huge value right there. That's really nice value for Derrick Henry. A lot of 2 running back teams here. That's interesting. Arsus is kind of getting boxed out of running back. What does he have left? Brian Robinson. I don't hate that. That's where I would go here. Pretty easy click for me. Definitely need Sutton to have a game here. Need him to be the bring back for this Tyreek Hill stack with Tua. But I don't mind this one. It's a little bit unique with Kyle Pitts. He certainly doesn't get drafted in every draft. Neither does Sutton, that's for sure. So, if Tua and Tyreek with Sutton is the stack that you need, chances are I'm going to have a pretty good look. So, there's number 1. Let's jump into another one here. Last week, shout out Hope Bishop. Hope finished 4th in the Battle Royale, which is pretty sweet. So I was talking about chalk and there being, good chalk, bad chalk, that sort of thing. This one's filled. That's nice. So good chalk, bad chalk. Sometimes you just got to eat it. Realistically, the only difference, 3rd again, that's fun. It's pretty consistent. Little less red badges in this one, so that's good. But anyways, chalk is chalk, and especially in these, we're only drafting 6 players. There's 56,000 teams drafted. 67. There you go. Different entrants. So there's tons of dupes. You got to get unique in some places. And the only difference last week, realistically, for Hope finishing 4th and 1st was Tony Pollard. He was the only player that she had that no one else had in that kind of top 5. So that's what made the difference was Tony Pollard, not falling into the end zone, which, maybe he should have, maybe he shouldn't. I don't know. Maybe this will be a good opportunity for me to get Kelsey here and see if I can push Patrick Mahomes. We'll see, because I don't necessarily, I definitely want to get some exposure to naked Kelsey teams. That's for sure. And hopefully this is one I can make that happen. So Jefferson, hopefully Tyreek goes 2. Maybe the limited, on Wednesday pushes him down the board to 3. So we'll see. And I might just start taking some naked. Yeah, it is. I think Kelsey might get moved up. That's really annoying. Do I want to take Tyreek again? No. Let's go. Let's go with Tony Pollard. And this is a game I'm not going to stack, so I'm taking a naked Pollard. I'm not taking any Arizona Cardinal. I'm not taking CeeDee Lamb. I'm not taking Dak Prescott. I would take CeeDee Lamb, but not in a lineup where I have Tony Pollard. Because if they are just beating the shit out of the Cardinals, which is what I see happening, then maybe Tony Pollard gets in for 3 touchdowns or something like that. So there you go. I'll take Tony Pollard in this one. see what happens, see where we can go from there. You can also backstack that Minnesota and LA Charger game, which I've done a fair amount of. So maybe that's an opportunity here. I don't mind taking a tight end here as well. Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson. Realistically, it's those three. So yeah, all these tight ends are going to get pushed up the board, I think, with running back being so thin. So that's what I think is going to be the natural progression and kind of order of operations. People are going to look to stack up tight end and then, push running back. So if I have a running back here already, I might go ahead and just grab Mark Andrews here. Yeah, and I might stack that game. So, do I want to just go ahead and snipe this guy and Travis Kelce? No, that's not what you want to do. He has to have that game. He has to have that be the stack. And it's super chalk. You have to have that chalk be the chalk that everybody needs to eat in order for this lineup to win. The Mahomes Kelce stack. Do I want some exposure to that? Yes. But I'm certainly not pushing for it. And again, I'm looking to actually take a relative amount of naked Kelce. So we'll see how that works out for me. I'll do a bunch more of these. This will be the last one for tonight. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Hit that like button if you don't mind. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you know when I'm going live. And then you can join in on these guys. I guess I have to go to two running backs here. You got Etienne and Walker. I like both of them in battle royales. So let's go with Etienne. Let's go Etienne. We got Tony Pollard, Travis Etienne, and Mark Andrews. I'm almost certainly going to stack up this Baltimore-Indianapolis game. I think it's worth having some exposure to that game. Again, I like Lamar Jackson for his passing yards, over his passing yards, 225. I like that number. So if I like that number, then I should be getting some exposure to it in battle royales, right? And then we'll talk about the bring back. I will bring back this game. I will bring back an Indianapolis pass catcher, and that's Michael Pittman. Double-digit targets in the first 2 weeks, both weeks. I'll bring him back, even if Gardner Minshew is starting. I don't mind Gardner Minshew starting with Michael Pittman. I really do not. So, he played the majority of the game with him last week, and, he had double-digit targets. He had a quality game. So I'll bring it back for sure with Michael Pittman. Interesting that Josh Allen is slipping so far. Maybe someone will be enticed to take a naked Josh Allen. So that's what you can do. You can push quarterback. So if people are trying to stack up their teams, which is the smart thing to do, I guess you could just take a naked Josh Allen though, and maybe that's all you need. And that's what Ranstam just did. So it's not a bad, if you're getting extreme value there, yeah, you got to pick it up and get some exposure to it. So I'll take Lamar Jackson here. I think I'm going to push Lamar Jackson. I'm going to push. Well, what's the point? Realistically, what's the point in pushing Lamar? I'm going to take some late round. Well, let's take Jordan Addison. I should have taken Jordan Addison there because I just don't think, I think this guy's either going to take Kirk Cousins or Justin Herbert. This guy already has a quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. So, Lamar Jackson was going to be there for me right here at 27, almost certainly. And there goes Kirk Cousins. So I should have taken Jordan Addison here at 22 if that's who I want. And it is. And then I'll be taking Michael Pittman. I don't necessarily, maybe I'll get some exposure to a double stack Lamar Jackson with Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, but I'm not going to do it on this team. I'm going to go ahead and get Jordan Addison. Michael Pittman, wow, why? That doesn't make tons of sense at all. That's interesting. Just snipe them on me for no good reason. Cool. Either way, I'm going to take Jordan Addison. because I think he just has the highest potential here. And then I might just have to take Zay Flowers as well. So Jordan Addison. That's really annoying. I was going to take Michael Pittman with my 34th pick here. So what I'll probably do is bring back the Jacksonville game with ETN, either Tank Dell or Nico Collins. And I don't mind scrolling down this far to get some value or to stack up a game, you know what I mean? So let's scroll down and stack up the Houston-Jacksonville game, even though I don't love the numbers in the pick'em section of the episode, as you saw there. But you got to do some different things. You got to take some chances in these battle royales. So let's definitely take Nico if he's there. 10 targets a game average, 6.5 catches average, 146 catches and a touchdown last week against Indy. That's why I like this Lamar, against Indianapolis. Could take Zay, but double stack. If I'm double stacking, then I definitely want to bring back. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. If I'm double stacking the Indy-Baltimore game with Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, and Mark Andrews, then I definitely want to be bringing it back with Michael Pittman. So can't do that here. So I'm just going to take the single stack and bring back the Jacksonville ETN game there with Nico Collins. There you go. There's another one in the books. I'll be jumping on tonight doing battle royales. So if you're in the best ball streets, join me in the battle royale streets. I'll be doing some more drafts. That's all I got for this week's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, hit that like button. If you want to send me a message on Twitter, at me on Twitter, whatever it is. If you have questions about some of the picks that I made, I'll post my pick'em slips on Twitter for everybody. Hold myself accountable. You're only as good as your last week as far as fantasy football is concerned, especially when you're a pundit like myself. Like I always say with Off the Schneid, if you're afraid to be wrong, you will never be right. Hopefully this week we are right. So we'll see you next week.